Welcome to the very outskirts of Saigon. Today we're gonna visit the Ho Chi tunnels and learn more about the Viet Cong and the Vietnam War in general. There's a huge network of tunnels underneath Vietnam, and they were used by the Viet Cong during the Tet Offensive in 1968. The Tet Offensive was a huge military campaign by North Vietnam against South Vietnam and the US and its allies. The tunnels were used as hiding spots, as well as storage, communication routes, hospitals and living quarters. And they weren't very pleasant to live in. There wasn't much food or water or air down there. It was small and cramped, and it was full of vermin and poisonous insects. And that's apparently where I'm going today. Before I get to go to the tunnels, I need to watch an introduction video. There's a fair bit of trigger warning for Americans watching these introduction movies. It's a lot about how horrible the Americans were and how beautiful and wonderful everything was before. There's of course some truth to that, but as always, the real truth is probably somewhere in the middle. This little hole here is a breathing hole, and the entrance to the tunnel was really well camouflaged over here. Here's a booby trap with sharpened bamboo sticks at the bottom. Those types of traps were originally used to hunt boars and similar animals, but later converted to hunt humans. The forest here is very young because most of it was destroyed in the war. That was a firing trench connected to a very small tunnel. We just got a lovely demonstration of a set of traps. This was one of the hospitals. Very clean and sterile. Those people were converting bomb shrapnel into spikes for the traps. The tunnel network is more than 250 kilometers long, and it started to be dug out in the 1940s. At first, they were used against the French, but then, most famously, they were used against the Americans. There are different levels to the tunnels at different depths. Some of the tunnels are 3 to 4 meters deep, that's level 1. Then you have level 2 at 5 to 6 meters, and then you have level 3 at 8 to 10 meters down. The tunnels were all dug by hand, and it's quite amazing to think of all the effort that went into building them. The tunnels that I'm visiting at Ben Duc are actually a bit further away than the most popular ones at Ben Dinh. I hear that Ben Dinh is even more touristy than this place, and that the tunnels there have been reinforced and enlarged even more for tourists. Then again, even here they were big enough to crawl through, and there was light in the tunnel as well. All to accommodate us fat tourists who want to get a small glimpse into what it was like to live down in these tunnels. So cramped and so hot. Bloody hell. That was just 40 meters. It felt like ages. The original tunnels were so small that the American soldiers simply didn't fit. Visiting the Ho Chi tunnels is one of the most popular things to do in Ho Chi Minh City, and that means that it's one of the most touristy things to do as well. The whole tunnel experience has been streamlined and commercialized, and they're trying to sell you a lot of different things. One of which is a visit to the nearby shooting range. Shooting an M16 is a little bit pricey at 60,000 dong per bullet, with a minimum of 10 bullets being bought. This whole experience is very touristy, but the thing is, the tunnels and the history behind it all is so fascinating that you don't really mind the touristiness. Is that a word? I hope it is. The history behind the tunnels and the effort in creating all of them is quite simply amazing. You can visit the tunnels with a completely organized tour, but I don't recommend it. It's easy to get there by taxi or bus or local motorcycle, and you can use the Grab app or ask your hotel to help you with booking the transport. That way you end up with a smaller group and you don't have to wait around for a busload of other tourists. You still need a tour guide to go into the actual tunnels, but they provide one on site, and that's included in the tickets. The entrance ticket is 125,000 dong, and it cost me 200,000 dong to get here with a Grab motorcycle. That's from Saigon District 1. If I had gone for a Grab car instead, it would have cost me 700,000 dong one way. Another reason not to go on a package tour is that most likely you have to stop at some handicraft place or some other touristy stop along the way. Just say no thank you to getting ripped off. Since this video is focusing on the Vietnam War, let's make a couple of interesting interludes. The War Remnant Museum is one of the most visited museums in Vietnam, and it gives a unique insight into the Vietnam War and many of the atrocities that happened during the war. The museum actually used to be called the Museum of Chinese and American War Crimes for a while. It is of course a very Vietnam-centric focus on the war at this museum. Someday I'd like to go to a similar museum in the US to see what the Americans say about the Vietnam War today. Right now they have a special exhibition here about Dien Bien Phu in the air, 12 days and nights of intense bombing of North Vietnam between December 18 and December 29, 1972. North Vietnam shot down 34 B-52 bombers during that time, and one of those bombers still remain today in a lake in the middle of Hanoi. You can see exhibitions about famous massacres here, and you can also see horrible weapons and torture devices. So some of the pictures are not for the faint of heart. But there is another side to the museum if you don't want to get too depressed. At the entrance to the museum you can see a huge collection of airplanes, tanks and other war machines. I would lie if I said that I don't find this pretty cool. I don't know any geek information like model numbers or anything else about these vehicles, but I have to admit that it feels a little bit like being a 12-year-old boy in a toy store. It feels a little bit weird that people are casually taking photos of their kids with guns. The Independence Palace, also called the Reunification Palace, is where the South Vietnamese president Nguyen Van Thieu directed his forces during the Vietnam War. These days, this massive palace in Saigon serves as a museum and as a reminder of the times of the war. This place had banquet halls, sleeping quarters for staff, military command centers, and cabinet rooms where leaders could discuss matters of war. And of course, it served as the president's palace as well. Do I look presidential enough here? All my loyal subjects, you shall all get 50,000 Primo Gems in Genshin Impact. That I promise you. Look at all the details in this office. Old telephones, a picture of JFK. It's really impressive how they've kept it like this. We used to have a phone like that when I was a kid. I feel old now. The president's bedroom, not too shabby. I wonder if they're gonna throw me out now. And of course there's a bunker as well, and a lot of communication rooms. Do you know what the South Vietnamese said here on April 30, 1975? Thanks a lot. I'll see myself out now. On April 30, 1975, this tank broke through the gates of the palace, and that marked the end of South Vietnam. But this is actually not the tank that broke through the palace gates. This is just one of the same model. That was a quick look at the Ho Chi tunnels and the role they played in the Vietnam War. I hope you found it interesting. Like and subscribe, but most importantly, have a great day. Now take a look at this video as well for a more fun side of Vietnam.